All right, hello guys, how we doing? Let me get sorted. Welcome to your second practical. Okay, today we're going to be looking at domestic animals. So last week we were looking at the linear classification system and how we classified our animals in our unit, and we did a little mini, kind of recap on the unit tour, and then we went through it all. Today we're going to be doing domestics, which is just general accommodation, health, handling. So we're going to be looking at mice, guinea pigs and dogs, and we're looking at other accommodations and things as well. First off, thank you to those of you who have sent me your classification extension task, which is you're picking 2 exotic and 2 domestic animals. I think I've got 10 in now. Guys, if you haven't, try and just get them to me. You know, it's not really a hard task, is it? And it's for your benefit, so we're just making sure that you understand everything. So yeah, try and get those to us as quickly as possible. And then, as always, there will be a task at the end of this as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take through into the S room where the guinea pigs and the mice are, and we're just going to start there. We'll start with the guinea pig, going to grab one of them, and we're just going to go over everything. Okay, let's make a start. Okay everybody, here we are inside our guinea pig enclosure. Now before I do anything practically, okay, I'm going to just go over some information with you, and let's link it to last week's lesson. So if anybody can remember the Latin name of a guinea pig, it was Cavia porcellus. Okay, now they are part of a larger suborder called histriomorphic, which is actually porcupine-like. All right, and the first thing you can see when you look around, they are very gregarious, which means they're very social, and that can be inter and intraspecies. Okay, inter and intraspecies, so they like to socialize with themselves, but if you have them as pets, they will socialize with you. They become very confident around you and they see you as a friend. Okay, they are very, very vocal as well, and I don't know if you could hear them, but they do chirp a lot. They make high-pitched little squeals and knittering sounds and chattering. Okay, now that can mean that they're happy. A high-pitched long squeal though can also mean that they're quite scared. The one sound that you want to stay away from though, if you hear it, is it's like a low drill, and they actually use their teeth for that, and that's a warning sign or a stay away from me, I'm not happy with you. So that's one thing to be aware of. Okay, now a male is known as a boar and a female is known as a sow. Okay, and males do have something called a perianal scent gland on the back of them, which can become impacted very quickly if you don't watch out for it. So whenever you're doing any kind of health check, you do need to watch out for that. So you check their anal and genital region, and you're looking for kind of matted fur or a greasy coat around that area. We will go into a lot more detail with that a little bit later, of course. Females do mature a little bit quicker than the males. So females mature at around 5 to 6 weeks, whereas males come into maturity at around 9 to 10 weeks. And sows are actually polyestrous, which means that they have many breeding cycles. So it's not once a year, they will have many breeding cycles over a period of time. Okay, so that's very important to know if you're looking to breed, or if you're not looking to breed, you want to be careful with that. As you can see, plenty of enrichment, plenty of items for them to chew on. They are rodent, so their teeth do grow constantly, and again, that's something that we will look at a little bit more in detail. I'll let the camera zoom in, so there we go. And we will kind of sort that out. We'll have a quick look and a little bit more in depth as we're going. Okay, so there's the introduction. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab one of them and we'll just go over a little bit of information. Okay everybody, so just here I have Pork. Here's one of our male guinea pigs. It is worth also mentioning something I didn't say before, that the young are born precocial. So I said that they do mature at about 6 weeks for females and 10 weeks for males. They do have around 4 in a litter. And they are born able to look after themselves, and that is known as precocial. Okay, guinea pigs are also coprophagic, okay, which means that they do eat their own feces. Only the soft ones though. There are 2 types, are soft and hard, and they will eat their soft feces. I did mention about communication. I don't know if you can hear him, but he's making some squeaky noises. That's nice and content noises. Okay, so you saw the accommodation before, but we'll go over that again in a little bit later. All right, let's talk about the guinea pigs themselves. So they are herbivorous. They need a complete diet of fruits and veggies, or you can give them a complete kind of biscuit. Now they do need a lot of vitamin C, however, because they do not synthesize vitamin C themselves, and that is due to them not having a certain liver enzyme, so they don't make it themselves in the body. Okay, they have to get it from their food, and they have to get large sources of it from their food. You see, I'm just stroking him, keeping him nice and calm as we're going. Okay, so a lack of vitamin C will lead to scurvy, which for anyone that doesn't know, okay, scurvy is overall it gives them no appetite, makes them weak, they get very swollen joints, okay, they get lameness, weight loss, and eventually it does lead to death. Okay, so vitamin C, when you're feeding, it's worth mentioning that you can't, well you can, but you shouldn't really be getting enough for over 3 months, because vitamin C does degrade over time and it will start having less of an impact, especially if you have it in light. So if it's in direct contact with light, it will kind of lose its potency over time. All right, so when we're holding a guinea pig, I'm just going to get my hands underneath, and then I use my hand like that as well. You can see I'm supporting. I've got him supported there, bring his leg in. If I have to, I'll just come down a little bit. I can bring him onto my chest, and I make sure, again, I've got him supported and my hands are on the shoulder, so I've got them, okay? And he feels supported and I can stroke him and I can look after him, okay? Now I'm going to bring him back over the table. Now you will notice when I put him down, I'm leaning down, and you will notice that when I had him on my chest, I was very, very careful, but I also leant down. That is because guinea pigs, they will scratch, and they will try and claw. They don't have a great bite on them because they don't have a deep mouth cavity, but they will scratch, and if you do happen to drop from height, you will hurt them. So have them low down as much as possible or over a surface. Okay, so let's talk a little bit before we do a health check about gastrointestinal orders. So a big one for guinea pigs is enterotoxemia, sorry, I'm talking over myself. And that is when they have low fibre in their diet, they get gut stasis, so they can't move food through their gut. Gas builds up as it kind of breaks down, and bacteria build up as well, and that causes death. All right, so when you're having a look at that, you need to make sure that they are defecating, but also you can have a feel around the stomach, and if you feel any kind of gas, swollen pouches in the stomach, then that could be a sign of enterotoxemia. Okay, and that is a gastrointestinal disorder, and that can come from bacteria such as Clostridium, botulism bacteria, sorry, which is found in soil. And that's very, very common. Now, it's worth mentioning that when you go to the vet, many broad antibiotics don't really work on guinea pigs. They have quite a good immunity to antibiotics in general, so you need to go to a vet who has worked with guinea pigs before. Okay, now non-digestive issues can include things such as dystocia, which is if the guinea pig, if a female doesn't have her first litter before 7 to 9 months, if you are breeding her, the hips do begin to ossify. That means the calcium begins to get rather thick and it can join together. Also, fat will build up and block the pelvic opening. Okay, if you are wanting to breed and this is occurring, a cesarean will be needed to prevent death. Okay, now the best thing to do if you aren't breeding, obviously get them spayed or get a male neutered. Okay. Ovarian cysts are very common in 2 to 4 year old guinea pigs as well, and they need surgery or a special diet. And of course there's the general stuff such as botodermatitis, which is also known as bumblefoot, which is where if they're constantly standing on something like wire or anything like that, they get an abscess build up in their paws, and it will kind of fill with fluid, and it does cause pain and it can pop, and that can be a great cause of discomfort for them. Signs of pain are guinea pigs hunched over, guinea pigs constantly allo or auto grooming them, allo grooming, sorry, or auto grooming, so constantly grooming themselves or other guinea pigs. Like I said, they are very, very social. Okay, a glazed look in their eyes, another thing that you can be looking out for. Or again, you're looking out for those signs like the drilling noise of the teeth, so the guinea pig's telling you to stay away from them. All right. In terms of respiratory infections, upper tracts such as pneumonia, that's very common in guinea pigs, okay? And that has a very high mortality rate, so you need to be careful. They can also get things such as flus and whatnot as well, so you're looking for stuff like runny nose and the likes of that, okay? So that's just a nice brief introduction to common vet issues and diseases and common ailments that they can get, and a little bit about feed. We'll go into diet a bit more. I'll go and get a photo of the diet sheet and some food photos as well, so you can have a look at that. But before we do anything like that, let's talk a little bit about their enclosure. Okay, so we've had a look at how to handle and restrain. So again, hand at the front, put my hand underneath. I'm always supporting. If I need to, I'm coming low down, just so you can see me. Bring them over, on, and then you see I've got them restrained. I always have my hands underneath and on the top as well. So make them feel supported, restrained, and you've got them comfortably. Okay, never ever scruff a guinea pig. I'll tell you why in a second. I'm just going to bring him back, sorry. Again, I'm going low, popping him down. Never ever scruff a guinea pig, okay? They don't have a lot of skin on them, and you can actually, if you scruff them too much, their eyes can pop out and you can cause problems to their teeth, all right? Because you can bring the mouth up too much, and you can cause some things called malocclusions of the teeth, which is where you damage them and the teeth start to grow in different directions. Now remember, guinea pigs are rodents, so the teeth do constantly grow. So now that we've done a little bit about the guinea pigs, let's have a little bit more about their diet, and we'll have a look at their enclosure as well, okay? Oh, he likes that. Whoa, look at that. Okay. Okay, everybody, so Now that we've had a look at everything, let's have a look at a general health check. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we all know how to do health checks. Sorry, the table's wobbling a little bit. Alright, so the first thing, obviously we check the behaviour in the gate. Now we've seen him running around, we know he's okay, he's interacting with his friends, so we know that his behaviour in his gate is actually fine. You see, I'm always restrained, I'm holding him as well, making sure that he's not going to run off the table. Remember we said they don't have great eyesight. Now the nose, I'm going to restrain, tap his nose. Yeah, moist and cold, not cold, but you know, a little bit colder than I would expect. A bit like a dog's nose, sorry. Moist and damp, there we go, let's have that, okay? Next, I'm going to move up to the eyes. I'm just going to make a brief health check here, guys. Okay, the eyes are clear. I'm just going to pull down the eyelid slightly, yep. Nice and gentle, pull down. Okay, I can't see anything interacting with his eye there. I can't see anything stuck in there. There's no discharge or anything either, and I can't see anything inside the eye, alright? Okay, let's have a look in the ears. So there's no mites, nothing in there. Give him a quick smell. There's no cheesy smells or anything like that. Now if I'm going to check the head, we're going to need to restrain. I'm going to use my thumbs, I'm going to use my fingers to open the mouth, and I'm going to use my middle fingers to restrain as well. So I'll put your thumb on the head, middle fingers go underneath. I'm going to use my forearms to lock him in, and then if I want to check his teeth, gently lift the mouth, and then I can lean over. There's teeth there. And there's his teeth there as well. Okay, and you're looking for nice straight teeth, no malocclusion, which I mentioned, where the teeth are growing in different directions, so they look nice and healthy. And I also could see his gums briefly. You can check our capillary refill time as well, should be under 2 seconds. So push your thumb down on the gum again, thumb on the top, middle finger underneath, lock in with your forearms, and use your fingers, open, and then you're leaning over. There's one side, and there's the other. Don't pull too hard, you don't want to split the gums, okay? Alright, so after that, check his whiskers. Yeah, he's alright. Checking his body, run your hand down, looking for any lumps, bumps, cuts, grazes, any nips from each other, especially if you've got more than one male. Okay, nope, everything's alright. Next, just check his legs. I'm looking for heat as well. It's a sign of infection. Checking all the legs. I'm going to just lift him up gently and check his pads, and I'm going to feel his claws as well. Okay, there's no urine scalds, I can't feel anything, he's not pulling away. I'm also going to pick him up, and I'm going to just hold him like this and check the other pads. And while I've got him here, I'm also going to check his genital area, okay? And again, can't see any discharge, no build-up, nothing happening there. And I can feel his underbelly as well. Remember we were saying about enterotoxemia. Oh, we like that. But there you can check the anus and the genitals as well. And again, you know how to do a health check, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, so I'm just going to put him back down. Anything else you can think of, pop it in the... Okay, so you can hear them, they're very vocal after that handling. Pork's a happy chappy. We've got him back down with his friends and his family. Sorry guys. You see they are a prey animal, remember that, so me walking through, I was at the side, but obviously did frighten them a little bit there. Remember they have great sense of smell, not great eyesight, so, and hearing as well. So they would have heard me coming on the shavings, alright? Now, legally, okay, legally for guinea pigs, the enclosure only has to be 8 to 10 inches high, and that's just to stop them climbing out. Now, guinea pigs are not great climbers. They will not climb high. They will not be able to climb out of something that is over 10 inches high. So that is illegal, 10 inches high for a guinea pig, obviously with a secure lid as well. It needs to have aeration, so it should be a wire, you know, a wire cage or a mesh cage. I'm just giving you a good view of the enclosure here. And legally, in terms of length, it needs to be 36 inches long minimum. And that is so you can include food bowls, hides, enough area for them to exercise and socialise and do what they need to do. Latrine as well, okay, so they will have an area for the toilet, which obviously you need to clean up frequently, okay. Now, for substrate, you are never to use anything that is cedar wood. So if you find a bag of shavings and it's made from cedar wood, stray well away from it. So when rodents urinate, the urine can mix in with the cedar wood, and it can actually create a toxic fume, which is deadly to guinea pigs and rodents and rats and mice and stuff. Sorry. And yeah, so you can see here we use wood shavings. These are aspen. You can also use newspaper if you have them in a cage. All right. And that is more than, as long as you clean it regularly and you change it regularly, then that is more than agreeable for them. Okay, so well, let's have a look at a bit of the food. We mentioned about a complete diet, so here we have the guinea pig nuggets, and that is a complete diet, and that is because you can see it only has one thing in there. It's not varied fruit and veg, and that has everything they need in, and that will have added vitamin C in it. And remember what we were saying about vitamin C, they don't synthesize it themselves, they need a lot of it in their food. They also have their water bottles. I'm just going to zoom in so I don't disturb them. Now you need to check water bottles because they will chew the plastic, and if they split, obviously the water will leak out, and they do drink quite a lot. And some guinea pigs have been known to go through, a small bottle a day. So that needs to be changed daily and topped up whenever necessary. We also have a little bit of hay down here. That's just for them to chew on. And we have mentioned about them being rodents. So they do need things that they chew on to keep their teeth in check. So you can see that plenty car. They have a wooden hide there. Some plastic which they will chew as well. All right. So that is our guinea pig enclosure. Now remember, 10 inches high, 36 inches long is the minimum, with areas for them to hide, sleep. They need food. They need air. The substrate as well. Remember. Anything as long as it's not cedar wood, because that will create toxic fumes. And let's remember some of our key terminology as well: coprophagic, precocial, histriomorphic, so the porcupine-like, cavia porcellus, gregarious. Let's try and remember as much of that as we can, being a higher up level. So let's take a lot of that on board as well. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a mouse, and we're going to use. He's called. No, he's not. We're going to use Bruce. But we'll have a look, we'll see which one's available, and we'll have a look at who we can use. And we're going to do roughly the same thing. We're going to look at accommodation, handling, health, and restraint. And then we're going to put this video all together and upload it for you guys. And then again, there's going to be a little task at the end of the lesson. Can you please get it to me in a timely fashion when you can, so I can mark it and have a look and make sure that we're staying on track with everything. Okay, so let's move over to the S room and grab the mouse. All right, everybody. So we're now into S room, which is where these small furries are, and the rabbits and guinea pigs as well. We've seen this before in the walkthrough, and I'm sure you've seen it before when you were on site in the first term. So we're going to move on to our mouse. So we're going to be using Bentley, not Bruce. So Bentley, he's a male fancy mouse. He's a lovely black colour, nice soft coat, and he is around 2 years old, so he's quite old. So we're going to take that into account whenever we do some handling and restraint, okay? So same as before, we're just going to go over the animal in general, a little bit about the accommodation, about his needs, and then we're going to get him out, do a very quick health check, and then we're also going to do handling and restraint. Okay, so you may have heard about small rodents before in terms of pinkies, fuzzies, or hoppers. That's because these animals are actually fed to reptiles. So fuzzies are obviously, young one-day-old mice moving on to fuzzies. Pinkies are one-day-old mice, moving on to fuzzies, which then start having the kind of like, the white fur growing across them, and then hoppers, which are a little bit older. So yes, you might have heard them in that respect, but we're going to be looking at it in a different manner. So we're actually looking at these animals in terms of handling, restraining, and as a group, and socially describing what they're like. So they are gregarious. They do like to live in groups. Can't see. I think he's asleep there. He's coming out there. So they do like to live in groups. They are very social. They're very active and they're very quick. Now it is worth noting that even though they do like to live in groups, mice can fight and they will gang up, and they also smell quite badly if you don't clean them. Okay, so there's a few negatives about owning them. So if you have more than one mouse in a group, 2 or 3, sorry, or even more, they can gang up on someone just because they don't like the individual. And a group of mice is actually called a gang, okay? Now, one nice thing about mice is that they will care for each other's young. So if there is a female that has a litter and she passes away, that another female will jump in and care for them, which is really, it's quite a nice thing that they do. They look after each other. And if you put in a male with a bunch of females and leave that male in for a while, the females will stop breeding with that male. If you then take him out and put another male in, the females will all sync up their breeding cycles, off he goes, and they'll start to breed with the male at the same time. Now, that's something called the Witten effect, okay? Now, that's really good if you're interested in breeding, genetics, or just looking after mice in general, fancy mice especially, that's these guys here. And if you are interested in anything like that, I suggest that you go further, deep dive a little bit into something called the Bruce effect. And that is all about how mice reabsorb their pups, which is what a young mouse is called, a baby mouse, how they reabsorb or abort their mice depending on their male counterpart. And it's very interesting. So you have the Witten effect, which is where the female cycles will link up with when a new male is put in, and the Bruce effect, which you guys can do a little bit more research on if you're interested. Okay, it is very scientific, and it is worth knowing about if you are going to be looking after rodents. All right, so they, as I mentioned, they can get quite smelly quite quick if you don't clean them out. That is because of a buildup of ammonia. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to pause this. We're going to get Bentley out. We're going to do a little bit of a health and handling session, and then I'm going to pop him back. Now, keep in mind, I did say that he is quite old and he is a small mouse, so we're going to take that into account when we get him out. All right. So I'll see you over on the handling table. Okay, everybody. So you can see I've taken Bentley out of his enclosure in his box. Now, do remember, this is a very small prey animal. Oh, is he coming out? He's just in there. So it was actually easier than chasing him around and trying to grab him and restrain him and pull him out. It was easier just to bring him and his little handling blocks, his little bed area to the handling table, so that I can just do it here and he'll feel nice and calm. And I also have something to put him back in if I'm not using him, so it will calm him down. Like I said, he is a bit of an older animal. We don't want to stress him too much. And if anyone's ever been bit by a rodent before, it hurts, trust me. Okay, their teeth constantly grow, remember, rodentia, so their teeth are always going, and they curve as well. So when they go in, they don't just piece the skin, they get underneath as well, okay? So it is quite painful. So what I'm going to do, first thing we're going to get it out of the way with, we're going to restrain him, all right? I'm just going to do it quickly, and I'm going to take you through it step by step, and then you can see that. And again, we're going to take into account that he is a very small and an older animal, okay? So we're going to minimize stress as much as possible. Now, if an animal dies from stress from kind of capturing it and handling it, it is known as capture myopathy. myopathy. Capture myopathy. And that's something that we need to be very careful of. It happens to fish all the time. You know, you get them in from pets at home or something, and you bring them home in the bag and you put them in the tank. You know, you've done all your acclimatization room and you let them out, and all of a sudden they die. So that's because of stress-related illnesses, okay? Rodents, small rodents, exactly the same. So we're going to be very careful with them. So I'm just going to get him out first. So we're going to stand up. We're going to keep him here over the table. Come on, Bentley. Come on, buddy. There he is. The first thing I want to do, okay, when he comes out, I'm just going to scoop him 2 hands. There we go, you see? And I'm going to let him get acclimatized to me first. I'm just going to put this to one side. And I'm going to let him go where he wants to go. And remember, when we're doing a health check, checking his gait and his behaviour, I can see his nose is constantly sniffing around, so we can see that he's healthy. In that respect, he's inquisitive yet cautious. And I can see his gait as well. He's looking very healthy. Now, I'm using my 2 hands to let him move around, okay? You see, I'm always supporting him. I don't want to put him down on the table because mice do have a habit to jump, then he can get away from you, and if he gets away, he's going to be very difficult to catch, all right? We also have a few other animals in here, like rabbits and guinea pigs. So we can do a very quick visual health check, all right? So we're starting at the front, remember, working our way back, nose, eyes. Same as a guinea pig, we're looking for things like discharge from areas, smells, any blood clots, anything like, you know, in the fur. Running your hand down the body, you can use your thumb. Give him a stroke, there we go, all right? Just stroking him, checking his tail as well. Small rodents, well, rodents in general, they can suffer from something called wet tail, which is essentially diarrhea that builds up and gets worse and worse over time and causes, you know, infections to come in, and that can be major issues. All right, checking the paws and the feet as well. I can see he's putting balance on and he's running around. Checking his claws as well. Again, I'm just doing visual because he's such a small animal. I don't want to just restrain him yet. Okay, so when it does come to restraining, very simple. He is a very small animal. Okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab his tail at the base and I'm going to hold it in place. There we go, I've got him. If I need... Okay guys, I do apologise if it's a bit of an abrupt stop there. Unfortunately my phone kind of cut out, so just going to kind of show you the restraint and then hopefully I'll be able to edit it so that it all comes back in. Okay, so again, I've just sorted the phone out, put Modi on. I'm going to get him out and show you the correct restraint with the tail. Okay, and I wouldn't... Sometimes you can see... people, they scruff small animals like this. I wouldn't scruff an animal like this because you risk if you pull too tight in the scruff, you can pop their eyes and you can pull the mouth back and it can hurt them a lot. So with a small animal like this, I would always recommend, just by the tail, lifting them up, and then you can check everything underneath. Okay, so I'm going to show you that now. Come on, buddy. Right now. Yeah. I'm just going to get him out again. There he is. Okay, just bring him over. So again, as we're handling before, base of the tail and lift. Keep him on your hand, and then you can see I can see underneath. Put him there on the table and lift, and I'm just going to keep it nice and tight like that. Okay, don't do by the tip. You want it close to the base as possible. So if you're checking underneath, close to the base and lift. There we go. In his genitals and undercarriage. You can see I'm still supporting him, and I'm putting him back down there like that. Okay, last time before we put him back. Okay. Put him on, base of the tail, and lift. There, and you can see underneath, there we go. And you see he's quite happy. Again, he does have a little bit of a scruff, but I wouldn't do it. I'll show you he does have a little. Just there you go, I don't know if you can just see I've got some. But it's so tight, I wouldn't necessarily, and there's no need to scruff an animal this size, guys, okay? You can see he's quite happy, he's running around. Again, base of the tail, and lift up. You lift up so his back feet off the floor. I'm just going to let him go back inside now for a bit, and then bring the camera back, okay? So I do apologise, I had to sort something out here on site. So let's get back to it, eh? And he goes, quite happy. Just make sure he's there. Now, you did see he does defecate quite a lot. Mice do defecate constantly. They urinate constantly as well, so you will get urine and feces on you, on your body, all right, that on your hands, so that just part of, rats and mice. Rats actually latrine their poo, so they poo in one area. Mice don't. They defecate all over the place, and they also urinate as they go. All right, and that's why sometimes actually, on the side note, you see kestrels on the side of the road hovering. They can actually see rodent urine, so they're following to see where that rodent has gone. All right, I'm going to put him back now because again, an old animal, smaller, can get stressed very quick. I don't want him out too long. You've seen that he does have a little bit of a scruff. You saw what happened when I did try and show you very gently. I didn't want to scruff and do the tail as well at the same time. But if you have a Google of that, you can do it. Now, our head tech here had a meeting with her before as well, and she doesn't scruff the animals either. A small animal like this, it's not worth running the risk, okay? On a larger animal, it is possible. So if you are going to do it again with a mouse, I'd recommend practice and make sure you know everything first. You lift the tail, one hand, get them on something solid, so you lift up and you'll kind of, you'll grasp down a little bit, scruff the neck, and then you get the tail in between your little finger, and then you can lift up, and these fingers are down, so essentially the animal's lying across like that, okay? Again, I don't recommend doing it with such small species, alright? So I'm just going to stick him back so we can be back in his enclosure. Okay, so we're just back at the handling table, guys. We're just going to go over a little bit of accommodation in a little bit more detail, and then we'll move on to general health and husbandry things. We've had a look at our restraint. We've had a very brief look at the health check. Remember, on any animal, you start at the front and you're working your way back. Okay, so start, a lot of the time it's at the nose because the sense of smell is a lot stronger in most animals, okay? So first off, I mentioned about ventilation. You need lots of ventilation in the animal's enclosure, fresh air coming through for the ammonia as well. That's just, it clears out any spores that might be being made from the substrates and things as well, okay? Aquariums are okay. They're not great for guinea pigs because it does trap ammonia, nitrogen buildup and stuff, but for mice and stuff it's okay as long as you clean regularly. They need to have a mesh top as well though, which you can't have a mesh top for a guinea pig because it does run the risk that they are a bit bigger, they are a bit stronger, they if it's not high enough they will push it off and they can't get out, okay? Mice can chew through it as well, but that's just make sure that the mesh is strong enough, okay? I wouldn't use, again, we've talked about cedar, aspen's fine and all that. Furniture for the teeth, we've mentioned about that. I'm just having a look at the lesson plan as we go through, guys. Sipper tubes, here we go. So Bentley doesn't have a sipper tube. He's got a bowl of water in there, which is fine, as long as it's shallow, because you don't want them getting too wet and you don't want them kind of falling in and, getting drowning or anything like that, sorry. Sipper tubes you need to check daily, though, all right? They are mice, they will chew, and if they chew through the sipper tube, obviously the water's out, and mice need water daily. Okay, they don't need loads, but they still need water daily to survive. So you have to make sure that that's something that is safe and that they have their welfare need for fresh water at all times, all right? Again, teeth check, we mentioned you could give them something to gnaw on and feel around for any protrusions or swelling or lumps and bumps or anything like that, okay? So let's talk about how do you check if an animal's in pain, especially on such a small species, okay? Well, I mentioned with guinea pigs and things like that, check their eyes. If they're glazed and they're not really looking at anything, that can be a sign of pain. Mice, however, they can have piloerection, which is where they hunch over and all the fur on them just goes on end, it just sticks up, and that can be a sign that they're in pain. So it's called piloerection, okay? So yeah, that is one sign that they're in pain. Listen for noises as well, constant kind of chittering and chattering. You also can look at appetite, water intake, lethargy, movement, gait, if there's lameness, anything like that, all right? So let's have a look at some gastrointestinal diseases first, called tizzes. Now, that attacks the upper GI tract. It causes dehydration, diarrhea, eventually death, and it is very hard to treat, but it is quite common. Now, the main thing to not, contract this disease for your animal is just good husbandry. It's a bacteria infection that builds up and up and up, and if it gets too bad, obviously the bacteria takes over and it causes that disease, tizzes, okay? TYZZES. Have a look at that, guys. That could be a really good one to research, and it's very fatal, though, okay? Other disorders, respiratory infections, much the same as kind of humans. They can get viruses like colds, coughs, looking for runny noses, sneezing, anything that could show that they've got, flu-like symptoms. So anything coming out their eyes, discharge or conjunctivitis kind of symptoms. All right, so you're checking for anything like that. Incisor malocclusions as well. I mentioned this with the guinea pigs, and I said obviously you can check by feeling around the bottom of the jaw. Okay, so you can feel for any swelling in the jaw, and that means that the teeth are growing in different directions or they're growing through the bottom of the mouth. and they're causing pain and discomfort. You can check that as well through obviously food intake. So mice need feed daily, they need to eat daily to survive, they need to drink daily to survive. So if you notice that the food's not going, then obviously there's a problem. In terms of diet, just because we've touched on it there, guys, mice will eat anything. Mice, they're omnivorous, they will eat each other if they get given the chance and they are starving. Mice will actually eat each other as well if there's no water. So that's another important thing, to have lots of fresh water. They will turn carnivorous and cannibalize if there's no water there, and they will do that to get moisture from blood to survive. Okay, so it'll be survival of the fittest in that sense. And it is not uncommon for male mice, I mentioned earlier, to eat the young. Okay, they will do that to make sure that their genetics are passing on, or if they're hungry, or if they are stressed. Okay, one more very, very common disease, that is not gastrointestinal. So gastrointestinal, guys, means obviously inside the intestinal tract, is tumours. Now, I actually used to have a little fancy mouse called Tumour, and he did die of a tumour. They do become very common in the animal, especially the older they get. They can get very, very large. If you Google mouse tumours, especially fancy mice, you will be shocked at how big they can get, and the mouse will just continue to live its life. I'm talking, some bigger than the animal in some cases. They can be removed surgically. You have to weigh up the options, obviously, though. How old is the animal? How big is the tumour? If it's a small tumour, okay, let's remove it. If it's a huge, giant tumour, is that too far along for the animal? Is that embedded inside? Has it done the damage already? So that is very, very common. And then finally, you've got obviously just the general things like fleas, ticks, and that kind of stuff. They will still attack small animals like mice, so you do need to be on board and checking their coat and their fur and your health checks as well, okay? Now, I realise I've touched very basic on the health check. I didn't want to have Bentley out too long. Again, I keep mentioning he is an old animal, he is very small. We didn't want to give him capture myopathy. He is well handled, but we don't want to push that too far, all right? So, a health check, basic health checks, you just start from the front and you work all the way to the back again. And just remember that restraint, best thing for such a small animal, base of the tail, lift up higher than what I did, okay? He could still kind of get his feet just at the bottom, so I was a bit focused on the camera and talking to you guys. Lift it up, not too high that you're bending him backwards over on himself, and you don't want to bend him in half, but just lift up so that his back legs are off the floor, and his two front legs will just kind of grasp into what he's got, and then you can check the underside, the undercarriage, and everything like that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just pause now, and then we'll go back in the classroom and I'll do the conclusion, and we'll introduce the task. All right, great one. Okay, guys, last thing about the mouse enclosure. Mentioned this, the minimum legal requirements for mice, and this is for 2 mice in 1 cage because they are sociable animals, remember, is 60 by 50, and that's 50 centimetres floor space, and 30 centimetres tall. So 60 by 50 by 30, okay? So have a look at that. That's the minimum legal requirements. That's for 2 mice, like I say. And just remember, they do like to climb, so, if you make it taller, obviously that's a lot better, but that's down for you guys to do a bit of research and decide on. And thinking about wire cages, if you're getting a wire cage for the tops, think about the size and the width of the bars, because mice do like to chew and they do like to get out. They can fit through very small areas. Mice and rodents and things, they do have quite a cartilaginous area on the rib cage, so if they are trying to get through something, they can flatten their ribs and they can go through. General rule of thumb is if you can get a biro pen lid through, a mouse can fit through. That's a general rule of thumb, okay? So take that on board. 60 by 50 by 30, and move on to the dogs then. Okay, so here we are again, everybody. I did mention at the start that we are going to do the kennels a little bit different, and I'm just going to leave these photos up. They're going to cycle through, and that is of our kennels on site for staff and for public, because we do have dog grooming here as well. So I'm just going to talk over the photos. You can take some notes. Now, dogs, it's very difficult to talk about dogs because there's a lot of different information out there. Obviously, there's a lot of different breeds, so I'm just going to go over some basics, okay? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on dogs because there's so much information out there. I believe that you guys as HE students, you can actually go out, find the breed that you're interested in, or get general relevant legislation such as Animal Welfare Act or Dog Board and Kennel Acts and things like that, and you can kind of have a deeper dive yourself if you're that interested in it, okay? So just as a general rule of thumb, kennels and run sizes, so we'll have a look at that. So this is for dogs under 55 centimetres at the shoulder, so you're always measuring at the shoulder, okay? So they need a sleeping area and an exercise area, and these two have to be different. You can't have an exercise area just for everything, okay? So for dogs under 55 centimetres at the shoulder, their sleeping area needs to be 2.5 metres squared,
and the exercise area also needs to be 2.5 meters squared. So that comes to a total of 5 meters squared. And remember, you need a separate area for exercise and a separate area for sleeping. So often that's an indoor and an outdoor area, just like we do with our kennels. You saw the photo before. Now, this is different for dogs over 55 centimeters at the shoulders. Okay, it does obviously go up. So sleeping area needs to be 3 meters squared, and the exercise area needs to be 3.5 meters squared. So a total kennel for a dog over 55 centimeters at the shoulder, you're looking at an area of 6.5 meters squared. All right. Now the recommended medium width, the minimum width, sorry, not medium, the recommended minimum width is 1.2 meters. And when more than one dog is boarded in the same kennel, you go for the size of the largest dog, not the smallest. The largest dog always, because you don't want to have a big dog in a small area. I mean, that's common sense, right? And any additional dog that you put in there, the size of the kennel should increase by an extra 20%. So obviously you figure out the math depending on what size the dog is at the shoulder and how much square space he already needs. If you're adding another dog in, you add another 20% of size into that, okay? So that is kind of basics for you looking at the kennels and how they house and their minimum requirements for sizing. So what we're going to look at now is just feed, and we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into feed. All right. So since dogs are carnivores, does this mean that they need to eat a diet that is primarily meat based? Well, because of the dietary needs of dogs, both their tooth structure and intestinal tract have become very adapted to an omnivorous diet. So this means that under normal circumstances, dogs can meet their nutritional needs by eating a combination of plant and animal food. So the source of the proteins and fats is less important than the quality and the digestibility of these components in their diet. So that means that the higher grade the food, the better. So it's not all just about how much they're getting, it's about where the food's coming from for the dogs, all right? It's also worth mentioning that there's a common myth out there that dogs can't use carbohydrates to make their energy. Now, that's not true. So, to meet their energy needs, dogs have actually evolved to use proteins and fats as their primary energy sources. They can still use carbohydrates for energy, though. Okay, they do have enzymes that they use to break down starches and sugars that you would find in carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates, though, such as grains and stuff, you'll see there it'll say on packets, oh, cooked grain and stuff. That's because it makes them more digestible for the dog. So that's where that kind of information is coming from. So if you ever hear that they can't break down carbohydrates, sorry, that is actually false. So there's 6 basic nutrients. These are water, protein, which is very important, fats, carbohydrates, minerals, and vitamins. Now you know these are what any animal needs, whether it be cat, dog, human, guinea pig, mouse, anything at all. All right. So these essential nutrients are required as part of the dog's regular diet and are involved in all of the basic functions of the body. The minimum dietary requirements, however, has been established for many nutrients depending on the breed. Okay, so for instance, you're going to see towards the end of of this little slideshow that I have a Papillon, and he's a pure breed, so he's 100% Papillon. He was a show dog, but I also have a Pomeranian Chihuahua mix thing, like a little mongrel mutt that we have. So her dietary needs, yes, they're both small dogs, but her needs in terms of the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that keep her homeostasis level are completely different to my Papillons. The Papillon's called Mr. Darcy, and the little Chihuahua mix thing's called Pippa. Okay, so within dogs, the maximum tolerable amounts of nutrients are known, and that results, the results in terms of toxicity, they've been established for individual species. What's less known is about malnutrition, because obviously people don't want to put animals through that. Okay, so what do you feed your dogs? Well, the best advice that you can really receive about feeding any dog is feed your dog the highest quality food that you can afford. The difference between a premium food and budget food are not found on the nutritional label. They're found in the quality and where the ingredients are coming from, so the source. So, for instance, 2 dog foods may contain around 27% of protein, but but when it comes to kind of digestibility, they could be completely different, because on a whole, 27% is what you'd find in this chicken and that chicken, but this chicken has come from a battery farm and this chicken is free range, for example. So the free range animal, obviously it's not pumped full of chemicals, the dog can digest it easier, and it can absorb a lot more of the nutrients that it needs to survive. So pet food ingredients are actually listed by order of weight. So each ingredient is weighed when it's added to the batch of food, and ingredients such as fresh meat contain a lot of water, and lots of that water is lost during processing, so then obviously the weight decreases, but that's not shown on the label because it's after the processing manufacturing part. So this means that a dry diet that lists something like I don't know, corn as the first ingredient may be nutritionally superior to one that's listing meat, because the meat will lose a lot of the water. So again, you're looking at really where the source of these ingredients are coming from. And lastly but not least, in the past several decades, nutritionists and veterinary researchers have identified that there are definite breed variations in metabolism and nutrient requirements. Breeds of dogs that were developed in specific locations, such as Arctic Circle breeds, huskies, and some of the water breeds, may have adapted to specialized diets that are common in their place of origin. So, inbreeding and genetic differences between individuals in each species may result in further need for individualization of the pet's diet in order to optimize health. So, it's pretty much what I was saying before, everybody. Look at your breed. What does that breed need? Okay, so again, we could do a huge deep dive and go to lots of different things. But if you're interested in this, have a look at this yourself. Pick your breed, go for it. Okay. It's also worth noting you need to think about your dog's age. Puppies are going to eat and eat and eat and eat, whereas a geriatric dog obviously is going to spend a lot less time at his bowl of food and a lot more time sleeping. And their lifestyle. A gun dog, for instance, is going to need a lot less than just a pet dog. A lot more, sorry, than a pet dog. Got backwards there, sorry. Because obviously a gun dog's working, running, retrieving, collecting, and a pet dog will go out for a walk once or twice a day. So they're two things to think about when you're looking at diet as well. So that was a bit to take in. Take down the notes. I've told you a little bit about the kind of general boarding and housing of dogs. It's a lot to look at. If you simply just Google minimum kennel size UK, there are quite a few things that come up. But there's a really nice, it's a nice kind of document, and it's under eastayrshire.gov.uk. So that's east-ayrshire.gov.uk, and it's called Dog Boarding Establishment License Conditions. And that actually has a lot of stuff. It talks about the animal welfare needs, which is just the basic things. But then that's where kind of you can get the measurements and stuff. And actually, when I was looking for the measurements, a lot of it came up with exactly what was on this, so it kind of backed up what I was saying. So this seems like a very reputable document. This is for licensing as well, so it talks about temperature in kennels, disease control, vaccination, materials, staff management. It's 8 pages long, very easy read. I wouldn't say it's loads of writing. It's fairly big font. So yeah, it's definitely worth having a look at. Sorry. When we're looking at health and handling, guys, I'm going to do a completely separate video. Rachel will tell you, if you ask her, we couldn't do the health and handling because trying to talk over a camera in a dog kennel that's full of dogs barking is just a losing battle, guys. I tried, I gave up fairly quickly. I phoned Rachel, she said that's fine. Okay, so I'll do a separate video with my dogs at some point. I'll pop that up before I'll try and get it up on Monday. Okay, but in terms of that, thanks very much. If you've got any questions, obviously you know where I am. You've got my email. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you need me. And obviously the task is what Rachel's setting this week. Quite a large task. And yeah, any problems? Drop me an email. Thanks, guys.